Heyoes! Clipper here, and welcome back to another study session. So last time we saw a lot of tutorials regarding game mechanics, and while we still will be getting some of that today, we'll also be dipping our toes back into the story a little bit. But before we do that, let's pick some flowers. So you may remember got being flower, and then 달콤하다 is kind of like to be sweet. Sometimes you'll just see 달다 on its own, and it's more or less the same thing. Now this repetition here is kind of used in the same way that we would say super duper or itsy bitsy. So altogether, 달콤달콤 꽃 is kind of like a super duper sweet flower.
길이 막혔어. 등반에서 올라가 봐. 등반은 스태미나를 소모해. 스태미나가 다 떨어지면 회복하는 데 시간이 걸려. 그럼 이제 목적지로 출발하는 거야. 목적지는 바로 7신상이야. 이 세상에는 7명의 신이 있어. 네가 찾고 있는 신은 누구지?
Alright, sweet. So first I'm gonna start with this little bit here, 길이 막혔어. So 길 is road, and then if you can remember all the way back to the dawn of time, we learned 막다, which was to block. So today, 막히다 is to be blocked. And we're gonna be seeing a lot of other similar patterns that help make this distinction as well. So according to Paimon, the road is blocked. Now for the next bit, 등반에서 올라가 봐. I'm not really worried about 등반하다 today. I'm just gonna focus on 오르다, which is kind of like to go up or to climb. And you may notice that it's actually connected to 가다 here at the end. And this is extremely common. In fact, in my experience, I think I've only really ever seen 오르다 as 올라가 or 올라와. Now, following up a verb with 보다 is kind of like to try it out, to try something new. And since 보다 on its own actually means to see, sometimes the way I think about it is like, see if you can ... Kinda hope that doesn't bite me in the butt someday. So altogether, in a nutshell, this bit is kind of like, the road's been blocked, so see if you can climb over. Alright, next up. So for this first bit, 등반은 스태미나를 소모해. I'm not really too worried about it, just know that climbing takes stamina. Okay, here's the fun part. 스태미나가 더 떨어지면, that's what we're working on for now. So 다 is like all. Right now we're talking about all of our stamina. And then 떨어지다 is kind of like to fall or to drop. It's technically not on our list, but if it's one of the few things that I can actually remember from growing up, then it must be important. So 스태미나가 다 떨어지면, when all of your stamina falls, or when you run out of stamina, 회복하는데 시간이 걸려. And once again, I'm not going to worry about this whole bit, I'm just going to focus on this second part, 시간이 걸려. So 시간 is time, and this phrase here, 시간이 걸려, is specifically to take time. So altogether, this is kind of like, if all of your stamina falls, it takes time to recover. Alright, next up, 그럼 이제 목적지로 출발하는 거야. So 그럼 you'll see at the beginning of sentences every now and then, and generally it's used as, alright then. And then 이제 actually means now, so this whole bit kind of reads as, now then, let's head out to our destination. As for that destination, 목적지는 바로 7신상이야. So 바로 is kind of like directly or straight, like how you would say head straight down the road. And then 일곱 in this little bit here is the native number 7. We also have 이다 here, which is to be. So as you might have guessed, this whole bit is our destination is straight to the statue of the 7. Then Paimon goes on to explain that 이 세상에는 7명의 신이 있어. So in this world, there are 7 gods. This phrasing here is actually kind of unusual to me. I'm not sure if it's supposed to sound more polite or something. I'll try to pay attention, see if I catch it anywhere else. Next, Paimon asks, 네가 찾고 있는 신은 누구지? This go 있다 ending is our present progressive, so it describes when someone is doing something. So 찾고 있어 is looking for. And as it so happens, you can actually use this G ending to ask a question, particularly when you kind of know the answer but maybe potentially forgot. And altogether, Paimon is asking, who is the god that you are looking for? Hey, let's see what this does for a second. Crap, I forgot how many parts there were to this tutorial, and they all have so many words. Well, let's come back to this one later, alright? Let's skip it for now. Okay, so 일몰 is kind of like a sunset, and then 열매 is a fruit. So it seems like sunsettias in Korean got localized to just sunset fruit. That's kind of fun. I'm just gonna... 버섯. Mushroom. 바삭바삭.
저게 바로 일곱 신상이야. 신의 조각상은 일곱 신이 수호하고 있는 세계를 상징해 이 땅의 곳곳에 널리 퍼져 있어. 이분은 바람, 원소의 힘을 주관하고 있는 신이야. 네가 찾고 있는 신이 바람의 신인지는 모르겠지만 일단 널 바람의 신의 영지로 데려왔어. 그렇지만 아무 이유 없이 여기로 데려온 건 아니야.
Alrighty, let's see what we got here. 저게 바로 일곱 신상이야. So, in a nutshell, Paimon is saying, that right there is the statue of the seven. And then there's this part. Like, I'm sorry, what? Paimon, you lost me immediately. And the fact that we don't really need to know a lot of this doesn't really help, but I'm gonna go through it bit by bit anyways, just so you get the structure of it. Alright, so this first little itty bitty bit here, 신의 조각상, that's the god's statues. So that's what we're talking about here. Alright, now for 일곱 신이 수호하고 있는 세계. Now, 세계 I would actually like to point out, because earlier we learned world to be 세상. Turns out 세계 is another way to refer to the world. Once again, I'm not sure how interchangeable these are. From what I understand, 세계 more refers to the physical globe of the world, whereas 세상 refers more to like the social aspect of the world, but once again, that's just based off of my limited knowledge. So this middle bit here refers to the world that the seven gods are protecting. And then 상징하다 is to symbolize. Again, don't worry about writing that one down. So altogether, Paimon is saying, the god statues symbolize the world that the seven gods are protecting. I had to check that one like 3 times to make sure I knew what I was doing. Next up, 이 땅에 곳곳에 널리 퍼져 있어. So 땅 kind of acts as land. Sometimes you'll see it as territory, but I usually just say land. And then we've seen got before, so got is kind of like here and there, place to place, everywhere. You get the idea. So I like to think of this bit as they're scattered far and wide across this land. And remember, we're still talking about the statues here. Alrighty then, moving on. 이분은 바람 원소의 힘을 주관하고 있는 신이야. Starting with 이분, 분 is just a polite way of saying person. So, this person. Now for 바람 원소의 힘, 바람 is wind, and then 원소 is kind of like element, which you don't really need to know, but we're going to be hearing it a lot, so you'll probably remember it anyways. So this whole bit is just the power of the wind element. And then 주관하고 있는 신, 주관하다 is kind of like to be in charge of. We technically saw this earlier, but I wasn't too concerned about it then, so I figured I'd just bring it up now. So, 주관하고 있는 신, the god who is in charge. So, putting everything together, Paimon is saying, this person is the god who is in charge of the power of the wind element, probably referring to the Venti statue. And this go ita ending here is actually a very interesting distinction that Paimon is making, because it implies that Venti isn't just the animal archon, he's the current animal archon. Either he wasn't always, or his position can be given to someone else in the future. And actually, Paimon just did this a little bit ago with 수호하고 있는 세계, implying that maybe the gods didn't always protect the world, or it wasn't these specific 7 gods. Am I reading too far into this? Because I feel like it's really early to be getting massive lordoms like this. Like, we're not even to the statue yet. Anyways, I should probably move on. 네가 찾고 있는 신이 바람의 신인지는 모르겠지만. So just a quick little recap here since we haven't seen it used this way. This 지만 ending here is but. So altogether, Paimon's saying, I don't know if the god you're looking for is the wind god, but... Next part. 일단 널 바람의 신의 영지로 데려왔어. So 일단 is kind of like first or for now, and then 데려오다 is like to bring, typically bring someone. Earlier we actually saw 데려가다, which is like to take someone away. So this first part is Paimon saying, but for now, I've brought you to the wind god's sacred place. And then next up, 그렇지만 아무 이유 없이 여기로 데려온 건 아니야. So focusing on 아무 이유 없이, 아무 is kind of like none or not any. 이유 is reason, and then 없다 is to not have or to not exist. So 아무 이유 없이, without any reason. So altogether, Paimon's kind of going, even so, I didn't bring you here without any reason. So at first this phrasing really confused me because from what I understood, double negatives didn't really pan out the way they do in English. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking that's more like with repeating words. So in English, when you say you're not hungry, it means you're hungry. But in Korean, if you say you're not hungry, it means you're really not hungry. So that's why the phrasing here works out okay. Also, side note about 없다 is that it's the opposite of 있다, which on its own is to have or to exist. And in a lot of phrases that use 있다, you can actually use 없다 to express the opposite, but this doesn't always work. So right now I'm thinking of 할 수 있어 to be able to, 할 수 없어 to not be able to also works. But for something like 하고 있어, you are doing something, you wouldn't say 하고 없어 to say that you're not doing something. And in fact, saying that aloud sounds really weird to me. Alrighty, 바람 잡는 이방인. 잡다 is like to catch, so this is this stranger who catches the wind. And with that, I think I'm gonna call it here. We're still a little bit rough in places, but overall, we're starting to get through it. We're starting to recognize things. I think it's pretty cool. Thank you for following along with me. It's been really cool to share a little bit of my progress with you and hopefully help you progress as well. As usual, some of my favorite resources will be in the description below, but I'm actually going to be adding one today. So my Naver Dictionary app has this extension to a thing called Papago. Basically imagine Google Translate, but it's been refined for these specific languages right here. It's really great for, say, verb endings that I'm not really familiar with and are kind of hard to look up. I can just throw the whole sentence in a Papago and kind of get an idea of what they're doing. I went online and I couldn't really figure out how to access it from the Naver Dictionary website, so I'm just going to be treating it like its own thing for now. Anyway, y'all, once again, thanks for sticking around, take care, and I'll see you across the ecliptic. Bye-bye!